Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This morning we discussed how as human beings we are self-conscious beings and therefore always conscious of ourselves, and we have a self-judgment as well as an expectation of ourselves. And generally I do not able to measure up to my own expectation. Therefore, I find myself inadequate. Thus, the sense of inadequacy about oneself is an ongoing thing. That is generally an undercurrent of the feeling of inadequacy about one's own self. And that sense of, I'm not adequate. I'm not adequate to a given situation, to a given task, to a given challenge. Just not adequate. That is a general conclusion. And situations which I confront, they seem to always confirm this conclusion on my part that I am not adequate. It is the sense of inadequacy which is the cause of our unhappiness. All unhappiness arises from just one cause, and that is the sense of inadequacy. If you do not become aware of this, all our sadness also results from this only one cause. When this thought, I'm not adequate, I'm not adequate, I'm not adequate, I'm not good enough, when that thought builds up, from unhappiness it makes me sad. If that further builds up, it makes me depressed. So all sorrow, sadness, depression, all of this is result of this one conclusion and the build-up of thought, I am inadequate. I am not satisfactory in my own perception. And unfortunately, the world also does not help. The world generally seems to confirm this or always push buttons. Already I am suffering from a low self-esteem. I don't think very highly of myself. Sometimes when the world thinks that I am a great person, within myself I think I know what I am. As Swamiji gives an example of this Miss Universe. So this woman has been declared as the most beautiful woman in the universe. And so she should be now very assured of herself that I am the most beautiful woman. So we would think that from next day she need not have to apply any makeup because she is most beautiful. But on the other hand, from next day she will spend twice the time, for makeup. Because within herself she has her own complexes. So, idea is that this complex is always there in one form or the other. And very often my experiences or the way I am treated by others also seems to only confirm this. As it is, I do not have a very high opinion about myself. I do not feel I am very worthy in my own opinion. So whenever I meet with any disappointment, any failure, then that conclusion on my part seems to be verified that yes, that's right, I am not worthy, I am not adequate. Sometimes I feel I am adequate, but others don't feel. The child comes home from the school with great enthusiasm to show his scorecard to his father, seeking approval from the father. And because the child has scored 90% marks, and is very happy, his father looks at the scorecard. 90%, not 95%. So others don't feel I'm adequate. Take the example of this recently married couple. the husband is very eager to please his wife, and so he does whatever he can. So he goes for shopping, goes to the vegetable market. This is in India, not here, but then, the vegetable markets where the market is only where the vegetable vendors are there with different vegetables. And so this man goes to buy vegetables. His wife has given him a list, get eggplant and okra and this and whatever. He goes there, he goes to the most expensive shop. That's how I remember doing, because you don't know what is good and what is not good. So it is safe to always spend more money thinking that you get the best thing. So he thinks that he's got the best okra and best eggplants or brinjals and whatever, and comes home and his wife looks at him. What? This is what you call okra? So these are all ripe. These are not tender. These are all, don't you understand this? Fellow is so nervous, he really does not understand, but these brinjal, eggplant, these are also very ripe, old. Don't you realize that these are all, old eggplants? It's not fresh. Enough to make this fellow nervous. Already he was nervous before going for shopping. And after coming back with this kind of remarks, you can control this person for the whole rest of the life now, He has a new car and he's driving to please his wife and he says, wait a minute, stop it, you're going too fast. So driving behind the seat makes this fellow again very nervous. Already, as I said, he does not think very highly of himself, and this kind of experiences confirms that I am no good. So this is how the controlling game goes on even between husband and wife. Each one wants to control the other, and thus if you find, so you have to listen to the conversation between the two of them, which often I am the witness. I don't participate, but I just listen. The wife is sitting at the back and the husband is sitting. Depends on what situation is. Sometimes wife knows more. Come on, so-and-so is his name, Come on, Tom, don't you understand this? This fellow says, okay. It can be other way around also. Wife says, hey, shut up now. Say that for 3-4 times and she'll shut up for forever, This controlling game between the boss and between the boss and the subordinate. Everybody wants to control and wants to prove themselves. And I guess the way we can prove ourselves superior is by proving somebody else inferior or no good. That seems to be the general way. That I think I'm good or I'm adequate when I prove that somebody is not good. So this is how I've been treated. From my childhood I've been treated like this, and therefore already my conclusion that I'm inadequate seems to be only confirmed by my experiences. And also, sometimes the prarabdha is not supporting us. Prarabdha is destiny. Sometimes destiny is not in our favor. Looks like Ishvara also sometimes is determined, to cause pain to me. Looks like it, for whatever I do. So this fellow does not succeed in whatever this fellow does. He takes up this business and doesn't succeed, takes another business, does not succeed, this thing doesn't succeed, takes up this job, and 2, 3, 4 times an experience like that, and the conclusion is, I'm a failure. So these kind of conclusions are there. Another thing that we always do is we are conscious of ourselves and conscious of the world around us also. And there is a tendency always to compare ourselves with others, and thus have an opinion about my looks, my height, my weight, my intelligence. For everything, my opinions about myself are based on my comparison with others. And so many complexes I'm suffering from. What is meant by freedom from complex? Of course, a wise person is free from complex, but if you look around, everybody other than human being is free from complex. All other creatures that way are free. Therefore, they are called vimuktaha. All animals are called vimuktaha. And this Lord Shiva is also a Vimukteshvara, because he is a lord of all these animals. They are all vimukta, they are all free. In what sense they are free? They are free of the complexes. There is no complex. So one animal does not compare itself to another animal and feel good, bad or indifferent. To give our Swamiji's example, a cow with a broken horn, another cow with a shapely horn. So the cow with a broken horn doesn't have a complex that I'm an ugly cow, or the cow with shapely horn doesn't have a complex that I'm a more beautiful cow. A cow that gives a lot of milk doesn't feel that I'm superior to a cow that does not give much milk. That cow also is free, even though she doesn't give any milk. And still, she has no problem eating her grass, eating whatever it is, She has no sense of guilt also. We would have a lot of sense of guilt. There is no guilt. A cow is free from sense of guilt. Even sense of hurt also. There may be a momentary sense of hurt perhaps, but ultimately it doesn't last much longer. Because there is no honor and dishonor. Cow does not feel honored. That is why it does not feel dishonored. So when we have sometimes some ceremonies where the cow worship is to be performed, so we have a cow brought to us. Of course, with that, the man who is taking care of that cow, because there is no way that we can handle cow on our own. So with that man, the cow comes, and we want to worship this cow, we want to respect her. And then we take chandanam, do the tilakam. She immediately, takes her head away, and she attacks you, she feels threatened, You try to offer a garland, she doesn't want it. There is no sense of being honored, the cow is stupid that way, we would think. So how nice would it when some people do tilak to me and offer garland and do these things, I feel so good about myself. I feel honored. It is so necessary, so nourishing to me. Because since I don't nourish myself, I need nourishment from others, and therefore, when they respect me, when they accept me, then I feel that I am being acceptable. No such complexes. So you can see what is meant by freedom. I am not saying that we have to become buffaloes or cows to become free. They are free because they don't have the consciousness. They don't have the kind of self-consciousness that we have. Therefore they don't have any complexes about themselves. They don't compare themselves with others. A buffalo does not compare itself with a cow. And though in India, as you know very well, a cow is always worshipped, nobody worships buffalo. Although in most of India, people drink buffalo milk. Cows don't give any milk. In India, particularly in places like Ahmedabad, etc., the cows are always wandering in the street because their owners, they don't even take the responsibility. They only do is they extract the milk from them. The rest of the time they just leave them. And so there was a question of taking village people to village, Because in India, there is a lot of displacement from villages because there is not much livelihood there, and so people come to these cities and there are the slums and all kinds of problems are there. So the scheme of taking villages back to village. So this R.K. Lakshman had a cartoon in Times of India. He says, why don't you take this, looking at showing a cow, So why don't you take them to the villages first, before taking, because that's, but the thing is that the cow is free. It can be anywhere, it occupies the middle of the road there, generally. And there's no concern at all. Even though there's huge buses and trucks, you are always scared of them, you always run away from them, but the cows don't run away from them. And the buses have to make their way around because they're unconcerned. The expression of freedom, what I'm saying is that freedom from complex, not freedom in the sense of moksha which we are talking about, but freedom from complexes. So, just to give an illustration of how the life is when there are no complexes. How the life is so miserable when there are complexes. So we are very complex. Each one of us is a complex person. So yesterday there was a question, what do we do? What is required for us to know my true nature? Just be a simple person. It's not easy to be, not simple to be simple, but then just to be a simple person. We are very complex people with all kinds of complexes about ourselves, and each complex becomes a source of unhappiness or sorrow. So this is how each one, whoever is born, is suffering from a sense of inadequacy. The degree can vary. You do find some people who are very cheerful, there are people who are cheerful. The cheerfulness can be there only when there is freedom from sense of inadequacy. Then only you can be happy. So you do find some people cheerful. They are blessed people. Meaning that they are simpler people than others. They have fewer complexes and they were therefore a less intense sense of inadequacy. Other people have more. So you find some people always unhappy. You find always sad, their face is long or whatever. Always like that. That shows that a strong complex or a strong sense of inadequacy. And more inadequate I feel, more needy I become. More needy I become for approval of acceptance of the world. That is why very often in our relationships also we relate to the people out of need. And that is a very unfavorable situation. Because when I am in need, then I become vulnerable. Somebody else can take advantage of my neediness. They can exploit me, they can use me, they can hurt me, they can do whatever they want, and therefore people are emotionally needy. Our basic need is the emotional need. There are needs of the body which is okay, and they are quite legitimate needs, that the biological needs are there, physiological needs are there. They are legitimate needs because they are built-in needs. They are what you call natural desires, and there is enough provision in the creation to satisfy those desires also. But the most difficult need is the emotional need, the need of being accepted, the need of being loved, the need of being approved. And thus, in many of our relationships also, we look up to other people for seeking acceptance, seeking approval, for being loved. And that puts us in a great disadvantage, because a needy person always has a great disadvantage, because that person depends upon the mercy of the other person to fulfill his or her need. There is a sense of helplessness. And so these complexes create a sense of need, a strong need, create a sense of helplessness. All of this is nothing but the expression of sorrow or unhappiness. Even anger and frustration, all of these are also nothing but the expression of sense of inadequacy. Reason is that actually I do not want to confront myself. Because every time I am required to confront myself, I find myself inadequate, not satisfactory to myself, unhappy with myself. Therefore, there is also a tendency on my part to avoid myself. Avoid that unhappy self, avoid that inadequate self. There is always an attempt to avoid myself. We do not want to confront ourselves. And that is why when somebody forces us or compels us to confront ourselves, then we become frustrated and angry. Some people have a knack of doing that. So they say something, and you ignore it and say something again, ignore it, say something. Swami, this person is always persists until I am provoked, So some people persist until we are provoked by saying things that are unpleasant to us. Why should I get provoked when somebody says something? Because they touch something very sensitive. We tell this story of this person who was attending Vedanta classes, regularly, and in places like in India, there are places where regular talks are going on. There are ashrams where they invite Mahatmas round the year. For a whole month, one Mahatma or Sadhu or Sannyas will be invited and he will give discourses, next month another. And so some people regularly go. So here is a person who sits in the front row and listening to this with great, enjoying what is being listened to and understands everything. And you always like this kind of listeners, who seem to enjoy what you are talking. Because I think the speaker also needs a certain amount of nourishment, a certain amount of approval, And so when it looks as though people understand what you are saying, they enjoy what you are saying, then you feel a sense of acceptance and approval, whatever. But anyway, here is a listener who's, enjoys what he's listening to. For this Mahatma was talking, for the whole month, morning and evening. And in Vedanta, Vedantic teachers only tell us one thing, Last night a question was asked, Swamiji, who am I? Answer is simple, you are limitless. This is what we are told in different ways, one way or the other. So for a whole month this person was listening, you are Brahman, Tattvamasi, you, that thou art. And then at the end of the month he is very upset and comes to see this Mahatma and says, what's the matter? He says, I'm very upset. Why are you upset? He says, Swamiji, day before yesterday in the evening, after listening to the talk, I left the hall and I put on my shoes. I was just walking, I was in the mood of what all you had said, and that's what my mind was thinking. I was not very aware of what is around me, and so by habit I put on my shoes and I was walking away. And somebody comes from behind, puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, do you see whose shoes you are wearing? Then I realized that they were shoes similar to mine, but not mine. And unfortunately, sometimes, most of the time, you generally come away with shoes which are older, and so there is always a loss. But in this particular case, unfortunately, those shoes were newer, better than my shoes. That is why that person said, don't you see? Don't you have eyes? Are you blind? Whatever. He said all kinds of things. Swami, this is what he said. He treated me so badly, And so I was a thief. And that, I can't get rid of this from my mind. I couldn't sleep for last 2 nights. That's why I come to you, seeking your help. What should I do? So Swami says, look, for the whole month, in morning, evening, I am telling you are Brahman. You are Brahman. You are Brahman. That has not touched you at all. And once this fellow said that you are a thief, that has made such an impact upon you. That is because when we are told like this, it seems to touch a chord inside. It seems to invoke from me a person which I think I am. When we are told Brahman, it doesn't seem to invoke because that is not my impression about myself. And that's why we are saying last night that this teaching doesn't become effective. It is very important and we should know in whatever effect, but then still, many people come in and say, Swamiji, I have listened enough now, I have to do something about it. So, this is nothing but frustration. So they think that there is something wrong with these people, in their sense. So now enough of listening. But it's not enough of listening. It is that we have to grow along with listening. And so, and I'm sure everybody grows also. But as I see, we always have expectation of ourselves. And more often than not, we do not live up to our own expectations. So if you say, I'm not making progress. I know everything. But then somehow it doesn't seem to come into my behavior. I have to practice something now. You go and say this to Puja Swami, then you'll have, when you talk about this practice and things like that, it says, no, you have to keep on listening. Paunah punyena shravanam kurija, listen to it again and again and again and again. That's how we get clarity, and that's how we can assimilate the knowledge. That's by the way, but here, this person is just a representative of all of us. That how when somebody says you are so and so, you are stupid or whatever, how I always want to make sure and prove myself to be smart and intelligent. In every discussion I have with my friends or with other people, that I always present myself as all-knowing, as a well-informed person, as person who knows what he's talking about, as person who is smart, always want to prove myself. And if fortunately other people accept that, yes, Swamiji, you know what you're talking about, then I think that I'm approved. Then I think that I am all right. I should be all right. I don't think so, but I should, because they say that I'm good, therefore I must be good. There's a need to always seek approval. Between husband and wife also, one of them is seeking approval of the other. Usually it's like that. And when that approval does not come forth, this is very frustrating. But then, this is our complex of always being needy, seeking favor of others, seeking approval of others. And therefore, very often, this emotional needy person needs the mercy of other people, and therefore very vulnerable. This is the situation of what we call self-non-acceptance. This topic of self-acceptance, of accepting oneself, becomes relevant because there is constantly a self non-acceptance habitually. It's not that somebody has taught me to do this. It is I am born with this tendency. I am born with the tendency to judge myself and judge myself as inadequate and have the complex that I am inadequate and thus suffer from that complex. Thus this, as we say always, that human being is on one hand the most evolved creature, at the same time the most miserable creature also. There is nobody who is as miserable or as unhappy as a human being in this universe. Sometimes that is why you wonder and you feel envious of these buffaloes who don't seem to have any worries in the world at all. In the morning when you go to work, you see a buffalo sitting quietly in a pool of mud. When you come home in the evening, the buffalo is still sitting there. No, nothing to accomplish. Nothing, no stresses, nothing to perform, nothing to accomplish, nothing to prove. No stress. You feel that, I guess it would be better if I was a buffalo rather than what I am. Sometimes. That is not the solution, unfortunately. The solution is to remain a human being and not become like buffalo. But then, discover the freedom that a buffalo has. Being conscious human being, consciously work such that we discover the freedom that the buffalo. What is the freedom? Freedom from all the complexes. In case of buffalo, it is not an evolved being. Therefore, the consciousness is not evolved in buffalo to become conscious of the self and therefore to become conscious that I am a limited being. Whereas we are all evolved, highly evolved, and therefore we are self-conscious being and therefore non-acceptability. See, this non-acceptance reflects in so many ways. People do not accept their body. As Swamiji, people do not accept their nose, some of them. They don't accept their height, they don't accept their weight. That is why a lot of business, billions of dollars of business is going on of the plastic surgery, of the beauticians, of the fitness centers, and all this is only because of our complexes. I am not saying you should not go to a beautician, you should not go to fitness. Do go there and always stay healthy. But not out of a complex. I want to lose weight so that other people will think that I'm all right, I'm good looking or whatever it is. So this complexes or the unhappiness or the sorrow that results from our habit of judging ourselves inadequate and thus not being happy with ourselves. So this is the fundamental problem with every human being. So Vedanta addresses the human problem that is common to every human being, whether ancient or modern. Some people feel that what is there in this Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, they are all Swami, they are all very ancient texts, they were applicable at that time. We are different now, we are in a different time. This is a modern time and therefore this kind of knowledge, the texts have no application in our life. But it has. Because in some way we are modern, in some way we are very ancient. So yes, in some form the form has changed, but then the thing does not change, As our Swami used to tell, once in New Delhi he was invited for bhiksha and then he went to a very modern place. The lady was very modern, a Punjabi lady, and a very beautiful home and a very nice dining table. Everybody seated on the dining table. Swami also is seated there and the servant comes and serves the food. This lady also has joined them. And so paratha and whatever, so this lady starts her dinner. Before doing that, she takes this paratha in her fingers and cuts them into pieces, puts it in her plate, and then takes the fork and knife. She must eat only with fork. See, modern person cannot eat with fingers. You have to only eat with fork. So then she takes the fork and takes a piece of that paratha and dips it in the dal or sabji or whatever it is. So she has satisfaction that she is a modern person. But the paratha is the same and also cutting pieces of the finger also is the same. Hunger also is the same. So certain things do not change. Whereas the form changes, some basic things do not change. We should know this. And therefore, this thing of the human being finding himself or herself as inadequate and therefore having these complexes is the same. And Vedanta addresses this fundamental thing. So Vedanta has solution for the fundamental problem of human being. It is not good for other things. There is no economics here, there is no politics here, there is no other science in Vedanta. Vedanta is nothing but addressing the self. Of course, we also give talks about management based on Bhagavad Gita, but that is not management of, how to sell your products and things of that sort. It is only management of the self. So we talk about the self-management. And we make them see how managing oneself is very important. In fact, equally important or sometimes more important than managing things other than yourself. In that sense, every manager also has a lot to gain from studying Vedanta, because Vedanta teaches self-management. When you first manage yourself, then you gain the capacity, or you gain really the adequacy to manage other things. So you may have skills, what they call hard skills, of managing man and material, but the soft skill of self-management is very important. Then you are in a position to apply your skills, otherwise you cannot apply the skills. As in case of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is a very efficient manager, very efficient person, very efficient warrior. He has fought many battles, and he is a very successful person, a very successful, very accomplished person in terms of his prowess, in terms of the weapons that he possessed. That's why one of his names was Parantapa. So Paran Shatrun Tapayati, one in whose presence the enemies are scorched. So that was his fame. A person like that also, as you know, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, as the emotional condition of Arjuna is described, that in that situation he just became extremely sad. His mind was overtaken by grief. Tam tatha krupayavishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam. Sanjaya describes the condition of Arjuna, that he was overcome by pity. There were tears in his eyes. Nayotsede Govindam, he said to Govinda, Lord Krishna, I will not fight. Visrujya sasharam chapam shoka samvigna manasaha. Having discarded his bow and arrow, he sat down in the middle of the chariot, his mind completely, deeply drowned in the sorrow of grief. So this was the condition of Arjuna. And all his prowess was of no use to him. As I said, he was a man of courage, a man of prowess. He had everything that was required for winning the battle. It is not that he told Lord Krishna, I will not fight battle because he was afraid. Some people say he was afraid of Bhishma, etc. He was not afraid of anybody. But then he just could not manage himself. So it was purely a problem of self-management. And Bhagavad Gita is a manual of self-management. How Lord Krishna taught Arjuna. And at the end of the teaching, Arjuna also reported, verified, Nashto moha smritin labdha tvat prasadat mayachyuta sitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. The Arjuna who said in the beginning, Nayotse, I will not fight. At the end of the teaching he says, Karishye vachanam tava. I will do as you tell me. It's a big thing. For one to do as somebody else tells you is not an ordinary thing. When can you do what somebody tells you to do? Without resistance. And we do, of course, what other people tell us. Because we have no choice more often than not. But with resistance we do. With reservation we do. With pain we do. But here when Arjuna says that I will do what you say without resistance, without reservation, without pain, happily, I will happily do what you want me to do. When can Arjuna say that? When Arjuna has no agenda at all. In the beginning he had agenda. And fighting this battle was contradictory to his agenda, so he said, I will not fight the battle. In course of the teaching, all his agenda is gone. So this is the highest form of self-management, becoming free from all the agenda. Arjuna became free. You know where the agenda comes from? What's the basic agenda? As you said this morning, basic agenda is self-acceptance. That's the only agenda we have. As you said in the morning, each one of us is seeking to be a pleased self. When am I pleased? When I'm acceptable to myself. So when there is no self, no acceptance, when there is acceptance of myself. So only agenda we have. And that alone results into various other agendas. You may have agenda of becoming a millionaire, become whatever it is. Any agenda you have ultimately is for the sake of being the pleased self. As I said in the morning, that whatever we love not for its sake, but for the sake of the pleased self. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Whatever is dear to me is dear for the sake of Atma, means the pleased self. That's the only agenda we have. And we find that anything that seems to contradict my agenda, then I resist, I reject, I revolt. Arjuna also sort of resisted, not revolted, but resisted. He rejected the situation because he interpreted the situation as not fulfilling his agenda, contradicting his agenda. Lord Krishna said, look, nothing need to contradict your agenda. Even such a difficult situation as fighting a battle with your near and dear ones is extremely difficult situation. Arjuna's problem is not an ordinary problem. That problem is, problems that we have in the life often are nothing compared to problems Arjuna had before him. That he had to fight with the people who are near and dear to him, and he would even have to kill them, meaning that he would become their killer. All this prospect did not please him at all. But at the end of the teaching, Arjuna became free from all the agenda. When he says, Karishye vachanam tava, I will do your bidding, I do what you want me to do, means I have no agenda at all. So that is called a moksha, understand? What is meant by moksha of freedom is freedom from agenda. And what's the source of agenda? Only one source. My not being happy with myself. The only agenda is to be the pleased self. And when would that agenda be complete? When I become the pleased self. When do I become one? So now Vedanta wants us to analyze this sense of inadequacy. So the whole world takes it for granted. Even all the other philosophies or theologies, in India also other schools of thought, other than this Vedanta, take for granted that the self is inadequate and somehow you have to make it adequate. So all our attempts are always to make ourselves adequate. Whether I want to become a wealthy person, hoping that I'll become adequate. I want to become a powerful person, hoping I'll become adequate. I want to become a well-known person, recognition, hoping to be adequate. So whatever we want, whether it's wealth, name, fame, recognition, whatever we want, whether family, children, no family, whatever we want or do not want, all of them has this one agenda, I want to be adequate. And I think that not understanding what that adequacy is, not understanding whether something can make me adequate or not, I've just taken for granted that inadequacy is my nature and that the world will give me adequacy. Two problems are there. One is having taken for granted that I'm inadequate, and secondly, having taken for granted that it is the world, meaning the objects and achievements of the world, that will make me adequate. That is another assumption. And that's the reason why my mind is always running out towards things and achievements, always in search for adequacy. Is always planning and scheming and coming with different schemes and different projects as to how to become adequate. So this is the situation. And essentially, as I said, everybody other than Vedanta takes for granted that inadequacy is your nature and you have to do something to become adequate, and then they show you the means. They say that if you go to heaven, then you become adequate, whatever kind of thing they tell you. Taking for granted that inadequacy is indeed your nature. And that is also good, because then you can control the people. An inadequate person always is a needy person and a vulnerable person. And therefore, people in authority can always control them by giving them different promises, by also threatening them that if they do not follow a certain path, then what kind of consequences will be there. And by also, as I said, giving promises and making them do things, etc., to maintain their position of power and control. So this is a game that's going on, except in Vedanta. There's no controlling game. A guru doesn't want to control his disciples. Nobody wants to control. And that's why people feel uncomfortable also, because they're accustomed to being controlled. So when you go to other kathas and things, then they are told, you are like this and you are like that. That's what they are told. You are no good, you should do this, wake up at 4 o'clock, do this thing, do that thing, then it's okay, otherwise you are not okay. Whereas Vedanta says, you are all right as you are. The famous statement is, Tattvamasi, that thou art. Or, you are that. What is that? That means limitless. You are limitless. This is what Vedanta teaches. And look at the construction of the sentence. You are limitless. This are is a verb of present tense, understand? You are limitless means what? That you are limitless. Not that you become limitless, understand? It is not a verb of becoming, it is verb of being. This is, are is nothing but a modification of that, is to be is a verb of being. To become is a verb of becoming. Everywhere we are told to become something. Vedanta in fact draws our attention to what we already are. Vedanta says that already you are what you are seeking to be. Unbelievable. But then, so Vedanta also gives us the reasoning behind that. But Swamiji, as you say, if I am what I want to be, I want to be adequate, I want to be happy, I want to be free from this. And you say that I'm already adequate, I'm already free, I'm already happy. So yes. If this is so, then how come I don't experience it? I don't experience happiness, I don't experience freedom. Every time I look at myself, what do I find? I find myself inadequate person. That is why we find ourselves running away from ourselves. As I say, we do not want to confront ourselves. Whenever a situation comes and I want to confront myself, I try to avoid that situation. So in the evening I come home from a very hard day's work, so I can go home and relax. And then when I relax in my favorite rocking chair with a cup of coffee and relax. So now you are happy? Yes, happy. For a few moments, that's all. And then again I become, this is okay. Now what next? The question is, what next? People even ask this question, Swamiji, after gaining knowledge, what after gaining knowledge, What after moksha? The Vedantin will say that, what is moksha? When this question does not remain. That's all. What is moksha? When this question does not remain. What next? Because when does this question arise, what next? What next is a question that reveals that what is in the present is not satisfactory. What next? Meaning that I am not all right as I am, I must do something, I must change myself or make change around myself. So this one person, every day when he would come from work, come home, for 45 minutes his business was to rearrange things that his wife has arranged. Every evening this is what I've seen this, Every day he'll come and then rearrange his desk and rearrange this and that. He would not enter the kitchen, of course, because that is her, But what is outside, he'll keep on doing this and put it here and then again put it back and then this and that. And he has satisfaction, that he has rearranged. So we want to rearrange things so that we'll find a very perfect situation. That is why all the time rearranging things. In our home also, you even change homes, you change furniture, change various things. Change your hair, change your skin, change your clothes, all kinds of changes. Rearrangement outside, rearrangement ourselves, with this expectation that I will somehow find a perfect situation. A situation when I will find myself inadequate. Meaning there also the assumption is that it is something else that has to make me adequate. My conclusion is I am very clear that I am inadequate or insufficient by nature. Someone or something has to make me sufficient. They will always seek love, ask for love. And so we feel hurt when somebody does not love me, somebody does not pay attention to me, somebody ignores me, because I feel ignored, I feel, rejected. So we are always asking for things. Vedanta says all this is wrong. The whole assumption is wrong. Not what we do is nothing right or wrong about what you do. It is, what is it that makes me do? What is the understanding I have, what conclusions I have which make me do things? That understanding, that perception is not right. Doing is okay. There's nothing wrong in doing what you are doing, whether you are working, or you want money, or whatever you want, it's all fine. What is not fine is how you look at yourself, that's all. That is what Vedanta addresses. And so the question was, if I am an adequate self, if happiness is my nature, then how come I don't experience it? And that is why we have concluded, every time I look at myself, I always find myself unhappy. As I said, that's why I want to run away. Even when I am relaxed also for a few minutes, then I want to do something else. And then you take up telephone and call somebody, and then with a TV, you flip the channels and whatever. All kinds of things you do because you don't know what to do. Somehow how to feel good, how to feel happy. So most of our entertainments also are nothing but escape distractions. Just escaping ourselves. We want to keep ourselves busy. So this morning we were talking about how these big companies, they get these young people, they employ them, give them good salaries and then take from them work for 14 hours a day. So couple of years it lasts, 14, and then you get burnt out, then you leave. But no, Swami, some people love that. They work for the whole of their life, 14, 16 hours a day. That shows what? There's nothing but another escape distraction. All these, what they call holics, whether alcoholic or workaholic or any holics, is nothing but escaping from oneself. So all these nothing, all kinds of anonymous you have. Not only alcoholic anonymous, but you have the overweight anonymous, and you have the people who cannot control shopping, people who cannot control spending, people who cannot control this. All of this, what does it show? It shows nothing but a strong sense of self-non-acceptance, and therefore escaping that self. So that is why sometimes Vedanta becomes very inconvenient, because it challenges us to confront ourselves and look at ourselves. Vedanta says that even though generally you may have a sense that you are an unhappy person, there are some moments anyway when you are happy. There are moments. That moment may be one moment in the whole day. That also may not be. Whole day may be sad and the whole week you may be sad. But there may be some moment, 1 or 2 moments in between, when you become free from sadness and you become happy for a moment. Again, of course, the sadness may come back. Like in the cloudy day, there is no sunshine at all, then the wind may take away the clouds, and there may be a little glimpse of sun. Again the clouds come. After some time again a glimpse of, so also sometimes a glimpse of little happiness or freedom. Then the cloud of sadness seems to come back. But Vedanta says that glimpse of one moment of happiness. And nobody can say that I have never experienced happiness. That nobody can say. I'm sure that there are some moments. Is it not so? Some moments. For example, when our Swamiji is very fond of telling us some slapstick jokes, and so he will tell a joke like this. This man tells his servant, says, "Come on, why are you standing inside? Go out and water the plants." "But sir, it is raining, so take an umbrella and go, Something like this. So makes a person happy. So for a moment, anyway, even a very sad person also smiles sometime. Says this is a person who has this protruding teeth and therefore he always avoids smiling. Well, he doesn't want his, he feels that he looks ugly when he smiles. That is his complex also. See, non-acceptance in so many ways. We don't accept our teeth, we don't accept the nose, we don't accept eyebrows. And so as Swamiji says, this woman made millions of dollars in plucking eyebrows. That's all she did. Because people are complex, they don't like their eyebrows. Then all kinds of therapies for planting hair and whatever. But even then also, in spite of all these complexes that we are suffering from, there are moments when we smile or we laugh. Even that person who is complex about his teeth also laughs. Then he immediately remembers, then he puts his hand around the mouth. But momentarily forgets and laughs. Shows that at that moment at least he became free from that complex. So there are moments when we become free from all complexes and we drop away. Our Swamiji says all the problems still remain. The way he describes problem is that his mother-in-law has come to his home with all her baggage, and she's still at home and is not left, meaning the big problem. For him, the mother-in-law is the big problem. But mother-in-law can be a solution also, whatever. But sometimes people come and don't go. Not mother-in-law, but even sometimes guests come. And that is so with Indian guests, they invite themselves. So when I was visiting somebody, I said, you two people are alone, so it must be, you must be feeling, no loneliness here. Every weekend you have guests, but you are in a God-forsaken place. Who will come to you? No, Swamiji, this place happens to be on the way to such and such place, Lake Tahoe. It's just 2 hours from here. So this is a very convenient stop. So people stop here. That's all. And said, you are booked for the weekend. Or sometimes even for a longer time. And this is, we like in your house, And so they like the treatment and they like the hospitality, and so sometimes being a good host also is no good, because then people don't want to leave. So there's all kinds of problems, people have all kinds of problems. So idea is that all the problems are intact. Nothing has gone away, no problem is solved, he has lost his job recently, it has not yet got it, he has all kinds of loans and housing and whatever things have happened. All of these are still standing, and so miserable situation is there. And still, in that miserable situation also a person does laugh for a moment. He does feel happy. Even if you do not laugh, I'm not saying that you have to always laugh to be happy. You can be happy even without laughing also. Although some people it's difficult to make them laugh anyway, but still, of course some people have such great control that they don't laugh. When Mahatma Gandhi went to England, and then this Charlie Chaplin was a great fan of Mahatma Gandhi, and so he invited Gandhi to stay with him. He says, no, I don't stay with the rich people. Right away he said. Then Chaplin had to say that I may be wealthy all right, but look, I come from such and such colony, which is calling the poor people. Then Gandhiji accepted. So once Chaplin gave him a challenge. So I'll make you laugh. He says, come on, you try. Charlie Chaplin can make laugh, anybody make laugh, the way he is. But he did all kinds of things, and Gandhiji did not laugh. That is self-control. There is no sadness. But sometimes it's difficult to make people laugh, for other reasons also. But anyway, even those people also, there are moments when they laugh, or there are moments when they become happy. And the only time we can feel happy is when we are free from the complex. Whenever there is any complex, we are always burdened by that complex. And that is why Vedanta draws our attention that deep sleep state is such a desirable state. That's why doctors also do that. When we complain to doctors that my mind keeps on thinking and thinking and thinking, I don't know what to do with this, Well, there are all kinds of names they will give you, But then the medicine they give you is to make the mind dull, that's all. And so you sleep for several hours a day. For at least that much time you are free from misery. So in a way, therefore, sleep is an inviting experience, because that's the time when the mind is free from all the complexes. And that is when we experience freedom. And that's why we always welcome that experience also. But we are not satisfied with that experience. Sleep is a welcome experience, but then we are not satisfied, because not only we want to experience freedom, but we want to experience freedom with awareness. I want to know that I am experiencing happiness. Therefore, in the waking, we are striving hard. But there are moments of happiness. There are moments of freedom when we become free from all complexes, free from awareness, self-awareness, self-consciousness, become free from that kind of self-consciousness of a limited self, consciousness of self which is burdened by all the problems, consciousness which is burdened by all the complexes. There are moments when we do become free. At that time, the freedom or the happiness that we experience, where does it come from? Our general conclusion is that the freedom has come from this joke. Swami, you told me joke, that is why I enjoyed it. And so we think that that is the source of happiness. Or when you go to dining hall, I'm sure when the camps are there and they always have some good treats in there, and so you get some good food and you enjoy it. So our conclusion is that it's the food that makes me happy, the music that makes me happy, my friend makes me happy, somebody else makes me happy. Because my conclusion is that I am unhappy by nature. But the thing is it true that it is somebody else or something else that makes me happy? So when I experience happiness, what am I experiencing? Is it experience of this slice of pizza or ice cream or music that is what causes happiness? We cannot say that. Because first slice of pizza makes you happy. So how about second slice of pizza? All right, Swamiji, I can eat 5 slices. Okay, 5 slices of pizza. And how about 6 slices? No, then I can't tolerate. 7 slices, 8 slices. Everything comes out, So if the slice of pizza are happiness, it should always make you happy. That's not the case. There is this law of diminishing return that anything ultimately you find that it fails to, turn you on or whatever the expression is. And so that shows that there is no consistency about anything. Even the dearest person that you have, there is no consistency that the company of that person will necessarily make you happy. No, there is no consistency about anything. Only one thing is consistent, and that is you are there in every experience of happiness. That's the only consistent factor. And so Vedanta teaches us that experience of happiness is your experience of your own self, your true self. That when all the cloud of complexes, when it clears momentarily, it's like the clearing of the clouds and having a glimpse of the sun, so also when the cloud of complexes clears, and you require some nimitta, definitely. You require some instrumental, something becoming instrumental to remove that cloud. Whatever it is immaterial what it is that removes the clouds of complex. But it is the freedom from complex that is happiness. Because freedom from complex is nothing but the perception of my own self. So at that time you have the perception of yourself, which is a very comforting thing. So Vedanta is the most comforting teaching. In what sense? Because it tells us that we are all right. That whatever complexes or opinions we entertain ourselves are not right. There is a reason why. Why do I have these complexes? There is a reason for that. That we'll explain. But the fact remains that whatever opinions we have about ourselves are not right opinions. That you are all right as you are. Tattvamasi, you are limitless, you are happiness. And therefore, in a moment of happiness, what you experience is your own self. And you can capitalize on that moment of happiness. You can capitalize on that experience of happiness. How? Meditation. So what is meditation? One very beautiful meditation is, the meditation can be on something other than myself, or meditation can be on myself also. Vedantic meditation is usually meditation upon the self. How do I meditate on myself? That moment of happiness. Just recollect that. So when you are now meditating, you are sitting there, your eyes are closed, your mind is relaxed. This is all preparation for meditation. And then you recall or visualize that moment when you were happy. Don't worry about what made you happy. Don't meditate on pizza or ice cream or something like that. But that happy self, the self that was happy, whatever was instrumental in making you happy, but then what is important is the self that you were. Visualize yourself. What you felt at that time. You felt very comfortable with yourself. You were at peace with yourself. There was no conflict in your mind. And remind yourself that that is your true nature. Even though that you may have a glimpse of that only once in a while, but still that is the truth of yourself. And even though normally a person may feel bad about himself, that is not the truth about myself. And so, one form of meditation is meditating upon myself. It's not make-believe, Swamiji. Is it brainwashing? Is it make-believe? No, it's not make-believe. Oh, but then you keep repeating, I am Brahman, I am limitless. Are you not brainwashing us? So your Swamiji is brainwashing you. So also some people say, Swamiji is brainwashing you. You're Brahman, just to make you feel good. No. Vedanta does not. Vedanta only deals with the realities of life. And this is reality about ourselves. In fact, we are already brainwashed. When we keep on condemning ourselves, then that is brainwashing. That brainwashing has been because of ignorance. So Vedanta wants to wash away that thing, actually. And so you can definitely meditate upon that moment of you, meditate on you, the happy self, which is a reality about yourself. So this is the reality, that you are adequate by nature. You are happiness by nature. You are free by that nature. It is true that this freedom or happiness or adequacy is not normally experienced, because the means of experience is the mind. And mind is not always disposed to experience this. But there are moments when the mind gains that disposition, not because of myself, because of some factors outside of myself, that the mind gains a disposition when it reveals the true nature of myself, which is when I experience the happiness that I am. So we'll explore on that, because that will teach us. So this is the vision of life that Vedanta presents. What's the vision of life? That you are what you are seeking to be. You are an adequate self. Your happiness is your nature. This is the vision of Vedanta. And Vedanta teaches us how to make this vision a reality in our life. So sadhya and sadhanam both. We will continue. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.